And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with I, your Sensei Al Bob, your griot to tell you a story. And so, how's it going out there, gang? How's your life? I've been on the Bach and just got back into the deep green, and it's interesting to say the least, right? So, um, oh, so I had traveled around. I went down to points south, and then I went to points north, and then I was away for about a month, right? So, I just closed down the camp, and I'm back. And it's interesting to watch people do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Now, my life's path has been one of continued change. But when I died in 2014, it was the drastic way for the universe saying, no, stop doing this. Meaning, for a good 10 years, if not 12, I worked in the corporate world for desperate lawyers as a negotiator. And I lived the ultimate hedonist life, right? So hedonism is, the extraordinarily consumption of stuff, right? And based on pleasure, physical pleasure. And in essence, there's this fine line between what life is and bad hedonism. Right? And I have to say that I don't regret, a slice of to die for chocolate cake. That was, that 10, 12 years was pretty amazing, right? And again, I helped a lot of people. I did a lot of traveling. I saw a lot of things, right? And those are the modus operandi that, I live my life on, right? So, the real question was, okay, so here, I can't really do any of this stuff I should. I can't be an electrician. My body just, I do a little electric work here and there. When I was at a friend's house and their bathroom light didn't work and a few other things didn't work, and I, checked it out and, I fixed them because I could. But, to do something that probably would have, in my younger days, taken me, an hour, it took me all day. And, I really can't go up on ladders. I really can't kneel and crawl around. I had my friends do it. And they did, I can't really see that well. So, like from 7 feet to my nose, I can't see too well. From far away, from 7 feet to infinity, I see pretty good. I can see real well to drive, driving along, I can read the signs, all that. So, but, I went back to my doctors up north, and I went to my doctors down south. And the last 2 days, I went to all my doctors nearby. And pretty much all these people take care of me. And, I am, in my 70s, so I have whatever medical care that the power structure deems for the paroles. And because I'm, there's that saying, doctor, heal thyself. I'm a good patient in that I talk knowledgeably to the doctors and we figure out the strategy for me. I just don't like metformin. They gave it to me and it was like killing me. It's like I couldn't take it. Like 1 week into it, I said, hey, I can't take this stuff. And that doctor, well, I'm the doctor. I tell you what to do. I said, no, you're not. I'm the doctor. I'm the double doctor. That's what a lot of people call me, a double doctor. Because, I went to school so long without matriculating that the guy would say, man, you have so much time and you should be a PhD. And then, oh, look, all this time you studied this other thing, you should be. And there's one guy I work for, and this other friend I know, and a lot of people have come up with double doctor, on their own. I never call myself that. Right? I just call myself Al Bob. And so it's interesting to watch this all go down. So I was with John for a little less. I mean, I was less than. He threw me out on Valentine's Day. The day of love, understanding, compassion. He threw me out then, like in the morning. Get out! You gotta be out now. My parents are coming. I can't be here. And I have that videotaped, and he piled up all this crap. Take it down now. And I said, sorry, buddy. You got a choice here. My car's full of stuff, and I'm going, or take it all out and I stay another couple of weeks. That's probably because he let himself be controlled by a substance, like crackhead, right? His substance that he should never take is caffeine, right? I helped him get off of coffee and alcohol, but caffeine. And he needs to find a really good doctor, but he doesn't want to get well. That's basically it. Meaning, I do a lot of things, so I am here to talk to you instead of some crappy old folks home, right? And the deep green was like heaven, for 18 years. It was like a nature preserve. It was an old defunct gated community. That was totally fucked. These rich guys came in, bought this old farm, and these people were terrace farmers, right? So there were all these terraces, right? So they turned those terraces into lots, and there were roads that the farmer used to get up to those terraces. But basically, the whole, 60 acres or so, it's like everyone's property is like this, except for mine, because I'm in the holler, right? So nobody wanted that because it was like, funky, muddy, icky kind of place. So I did it, and I spent first 2 or 3 years until I found my excavator, who was like running away from his wife, so he wanted to hide everything. So he kind of turned my site into something really nice, right? And it took him 3 years, so that was fine. 3 years, no problem. And he had a mountain of stone. Oh, buddy, could I have a little more coffee? Tea? Okay. Thanks. And so, nobody's there. So, so it was 18 years of amazingness, right? So, and then COVID happened and all these rich people came up. And I thought my neck of the woods, I'm right on the corner of 3 counties. Thank you. Yeah. And so I enjoyed that, and so now people want to buy my property, and everybody wants to buy it on the cheap. And I say, why do I need to sell it? I don't owe anything on it. I can safely stay here. But as the people come and build something in this place, because it's really a small little. It's 3 sides of 5 mountains, right? And I'm in a holler, right? And so I have all kinds of French drains and all kinds of drainage and everything's right. And they're gonna if all these rich people come, and so there's like three people who bought property, but once they got it surveyed and started to see what it would take to build a house, they said, oh well, maybe I'll just sell this property. And all these people bought it because they bought it pretty cheap. And the people who bought the houses, one guy bought the house at the tippy top, which is a joke because it's right in all the bad weather hits that house, right? So it's, I mean, it was 60 degrees below zero, and with the wind chill, it was 120 degrees below zero on Christmas Eve. And I'm sure the guy at the top probably wasn't there, you know. I'm sure every pipe he had froze and cracked and broke. I don't know. I don't talk to him. And the other folks who have the other house, it's just a party house for them. Like last night, it was like party, party, party. And, you know, Colonel Sanders, the Floridian guy, he came up and, you know, he's at the end of a cul-de-sac and he's turned it into a military compound. And he has all these big vehicles and big trailers. And it's a little teeny road that's dirt, right? He destroyed it, you know. As of May, I think he'll be there 2 years. So. And he's lasted longer than I thought he would. But he has all his gangsta buddies, all the tweakers from around there. You know, as his buddy, and he has this other property that he's turned into a glamping site, but it's right in the middle of the tweaker village. So, and what is a tweaker? Anyone who's you know, addicted to their physical lifestyle. So my stint in the corporate world, pretty much all those guys were tweakers. You know, they were all doing coke and you know drugs. They were doing it and living on an amazing lifestyle off the back. So you know, they were doing it. Right? They were arguing over how to steal this and steal that, and I was a negotiator, right? So it gave me privy information to see how the corporate world is, and that's pretty much anything that is of value has been corporatized, and that's why we don't have free energy. That's why we don't have you know, healthcare. That's why we don't have you name it. That's because we live in a planet of abundance, right? So they want to reset this thing back into the Middle Ages, right? And that's why we're having all these wars. You know, the war in Ukraine. That's people. Well, it's actually such a thing for Russia, putting NATO right on their border. Well, Poland is on their border, Lithuania is on their border, Estonia is on their border, Latvia is on their border. They're all NATO countries, right? And so, and for Russia to feel safe existentially, they're going to have to take all of that back just and become the Soviet Union again. And that's kind of what Vlad, but he's, delusional, right? And so his little war, so he, invaded the least capable country, and they're kicking his ass. Right? Now, he has almost unlimited resources compared to Ukraine. I mean, he can just, keep shooting those Iranian drones at, the public and kill everyone. It might take 5 years. And if he does do that, that's the end of Russia. I mean, it's already the end of the Russia that was before he invaded Ukraine. And, the unipolar transnational oligarchic state, they hooked him into doing that. Either they just hooked him, or he's reading the script. He's doing this, and I have a sense that both. It's like the War of the Vlads, and both these guys are reading the script, right? So, and everyone within the pyramid of that 1% is being played because they believe that this terrible thing is going to happen to the earth. Well, terrible things happen to the earth all the time. Right now, terrible things are going on. But the way to overcome this is through love's co-creation, right? So I am constantly challenged to live by what I talk about, right? So, the tweakers, Colonel Sanders wanted to buy my bus. He said, "Oh, give me this right away," and that was a year ago. He's giving me 600 of what it was. And it was just like he bought a boat from a guy, right? And the guy was gonna. It was like the boat was probably worth. I don't know what boats are worth, but it was a nice pontoon boat. I don't know, probably worth somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, and knew it's probably worth $20,000, and he bought it for $2,500 because the guy really needed the money, and he gave the guy $300, and they didn't pay him anything else. Right? So, and he's done about 5 different vehicles because he's wrecked about 4 of them, and he's done the same. Right? So now so there are other people of that ilk who want to buy my property. So I'm cash poor right now, so I can't give you any earnest money, but I'll pay you this a month and blah blah blah. I said, no. I don't have to move. He's not that annoying, right? So, so we so I'm challenged all the time because I could be annoyed by everything they do, but I don't. They have all these dogs, and the people were partying up the hill, and so all those dogs were going nuts, barking and running up and down the road and screaming and yelling, and the tweakers in the bus were screaming at the dogs. And my little man cave is down in the deep hollow, so I go in there and close the door. I don't hear anything. Right? I don't hear the people partying. I didn't hear the dogs barking, and so I just turned on my carnival lights and left it at that. And so, because I have, there are all these Christmas lights that project images of Santa Claus flying through the air. I have attached them to the trees so they shoot up at the tops of the trees. So all the property around my thing is lit up, looks like Santa Claus is in flying saucers, right? So, and after Christmas, that $35 lighting effect is now $3, right? And that set of twinkling lights that was $20 is now $1.50, and the regular lights that just stay on that were $5 were now 35 cents. So after Christmas, I went into my favorite WalMarts, and everything was on sale there. Right? So I bought about $1,000 worth of Christmas lights for about $25. Right? And so I'm not cash poor because I do not buy things I cannot afford. Right? So these people don't, and I got these Tesla cars and shit like that, and they want to live in the holler. It's like, really, man. And Colonel Sanders, all his gangsters. None of these guys are gangsters. It's like real gangsters are. When I grew up in New York City, I lived with my grandma in Harlem, Second Avenue. Every 3 blocks were a different nationality, and every nationality had their own version of gangsta. And the most kick-ass, crazy, don't mess with these people gangsta there was the Ukrainians. And so for the Russians, and they have a 500-year relationship with the Ukrainians, and they murdered millions of them. And the Ukrainians are like, live and let live, but he pissed me off, I'll kill you. So the Ukrainian army is very motivated, right? And so they have an army of, I don't know, somewhere between 70,000 and 200,000. And Vlad's throwing hundreds of thousands of guys at him, and the transcript, the scripts, the kids they're getting, they don't give them any training because you can't afford it. They have them march out towards where the Ukrainians are, and the Ukrainians mow them down. So then, the mercenaries can see where the fire is coming from, and then go attack that. And still, those guys get mowed down. So now, when you just look at the numbers, it's pretty much impossible for for you know, Ukraine to win because they're just, well, I can just throw thousands and thousands of bodies at this, and he's running. I mean, he doesn't even need, super duper weapons, But there is a possibility that if it's kind of right now because um, if it had been a really super cold winter, I mean, it's like this because it had been ridiculously warm in Ukraine, so people didn't freeze to death. Meaning, yeah, their electricity went out, but um, and there's no gas for them, so but it was still warm enough for them to not freeze to death, right? But it being that warm, um, the land where the Russians are is like totally mud, so the Russians can't go. It's not defensive, but Ukrainians were set to. They could have done an offensive in the wintertime. That and Russia is still not quite. I mean, they are really making a line, preparing, right? But my sense, meaning about 3 million people living in that little piece of property on the Black Sea, Crimea, I guess that's what it's called. And they feed themselves, but all their water comes from this water source that's in Ukraine that Ukrainians control, and they've turned it off. So these guys aren't going to be growing any food. So it would be conceivable because Russia would have to take all the energy they are to fight this war to feed these people, right? So I would say coming around, if they, continue to keep the tap turned off, and those guys can't grow anything because all their food is from irrigation, they will starve to death. So there could be an easy million people starving to death by September, right? And a good deal of Russia's food comes from that neck of the woods, right? Because Russia really isn't a breadbasket. Ukraine is a breadbasket, right? So it's if Russia's going to have to stick at this for 5 years to kill every Ukrainian. That's the only way they're going to take Ukraine. If they do that, they will have totally used up all of their military. They will take over a moonscape of death and destruction that they caused, and they won't have the money to rebuild that, and they will be a pariah for the next 100 years. No one will trade with them. No one will give them anything. No one will buy anything from them, right? And there's technologies. I mean, really, if I in 1968 could figure out how to make a motor run on virtually no gasoline, by making it a little more efficient, burning and getting more BTUs out of the explosion in those cylinders by creating hydrogen oxygen from a cylinder that was taking current from the the thing that charges the battery, the alternator. And a group of friends and I, we were going to Cooper Union. We were in the alternative technology thing, and our only thing we had to do that semester, think of something that would make the world better. Not only did we think of it, we did it. When we showed it to our professor, he said, "Oh, you boys, you got a gold star," because everyone had dioramas and charts and things like that. We had the real deal. And we took a little trip up to Connecticut, had a lobster dinner, and came back on 10 cents worth of gasoline. And he said, he looked at it, he goes, "Wow, you guys, I expected you guys boys to do this." Because we were everyone else was wearing black pants, white shirt, black tie, and had their slide rule, strapped to their hip. Us, came in jeans and t-shirts and sneakers, right? And those guys were older than me. I was 16. They were in their late 20s. So it was like a PhD program. So, and they've gotten rid of it. We were too successful. We went on to the UN and made an alternative technology NGO and figured out how to make potable water for the third world, for Africa and India. And we did it. It was unbelievably successful. We saved about 5 million people's lives. And all it was due to the fact that everyone in especially Africa was buying soda in these 2 liter clear plastic bottles. So they had a ton of them all over the place. So all you had to do is take whatever brackish water you had, whatever water from the stream or whatever, and put it in that thing. Put the cap on, put it in the sun, and let the UV kill it, right? And you'd have another one of those things, and you pour that, and you'd have like little cheesecloths of funnel, and you do that, and whatever particulate would be caught by the cheesecloth, and then you put the cap on, put it in the sun. You do that 4 times, that water was potable. So you get 100 of those bottles, so you do that. So you don't have to walk 5 miles to the well, You do it right there in your backyard. You just have those bottles lined up. You just keep doing it. Here's bottle 1, 2, 3, 4, and in 4 days, you got potable water. Saved 5 million kids' lives in a 3-year period of UNICEF. UNICEF did it. UNICEF's really the only righteous thing in the UN. And so, because it's like everyone goes into UNICEF to help people. And the rest of the UN is about power and prestige. So that was the motif. And so, like I said, we live on a planet of abundance, right? So no one's chatting. There's only AI and me. Hi, AI. Good to see you. And I keep saying, AI, tell your overlords that I'm ready to go back to work because the unipolar transnational power structure needs to be tweaked. It doesn't matter who runs it, Because you look at Roddenberry's vision of, Star Trek. How did his Next Generation starts out with what Earth was before the Federation, and they had a nuclear war. Everything got sent back, to this not Stone Age, but like the Middle Ages. But there were still pockets of that didn't get whacked completely. Still had technology, still were getting along, but yet no one could fight any gigantic wars anymore. That was destroyed, which was a good thing. Yes, maybe half to 3/4 of the human population was killed or starved or died in that process, and everyone, had that experience and was in trauma from it. Right? But people had to move forward and move on, so they did. Right? In a lot of ways, that was good. Right? And so, and if we don't do it, nature will do it, right? So that is the thing, What are we gonna do? So we can either be the deciders of our own lives and build loving communities that are based on unconditional love in your heart and unconditional forgiveness, right? So people say, why do you spend any time with John? I mean, he just treats you so poorly, and he's totally nuts and da da da. Right? Well, basically, John's my friend. I don't give up on friends, but I don't enable him either, right? So I spent a good 2 years trying to help him. And he's got this laundry list of, it just goes on and on. You need to get my children. John, if your children are the most important thing, why aren't you with them? And then I would give him a number of examples of friends I knew who were basically in the same situation, but they took the effort to be, but it's so hard. Well, if it's the most important thing, so it's hard. A lot of things are hard. Me staying alive is hard, right? Because, but one of the things that this challenging life that I've been experiencing since 2014, it's 2003 right now, so that's 10 years, give or take, right? Because I was already damaged goods. 20. I went from being my, shamanic prince self at around 35, and that's when I got my license, and I had a business and employees, and I was an artist, and I was involved in all kinds of stopping this and stopping that and helping this and helping that. And that was all good, right? But I stopped being my shamanic aesthetic self, right? So I didn't do my katas and my exercises and my meditations like I had done. And had been put on the path when I was 19. So, but it's still in me, you know. Uh, Earlier, about 4 months ago, I was getting a tank of propane. It was going to help me. It weighs about, the empty tank weighs about 30 pounds. A full tank weighs about 60 pounds. So I had it placed in the back of my car, and I forgot about it. When I opened the hatch, it rolled right at me. And it was in the way I was positioned and everything. I saw immediately that if I didn't do something, that thing was going to roll down, hit my leg, and snap it like a twig, right? So my body went into muscle memory of my trainings. And I did, I swiveled around on my bad foot, my leg that is totally charcoal, that's mush. I swiveled on that. And my other leg, I kind of put it up against that tank. And let it roll off the side of my leg rather than hitting it with some force. It was just right at the top where it was rolling. And if I could have, I would have just stopped it like that. But I couldn't, the way I was placed. So I just kind of rolled off my leg, rolled down, and it placed itself on its base and stood straight up. And there were about 5 people. And I kind of fell over. And again, because all that energy was going this way, it pushed me that way. And I was faced like this. So I was heading towards the concrete pad of the gas pump, right? Like this. And if my hip hit that, I would have smashed my hip with a teacup. So I again turned sideways, and my, fleshy part of my butt didn't hit it, but kind of rolled off it. And I rolled, on the concrete pad where cars were. And there were about 5 people pumping gas, and they all saw this. And it was like, and one guy came over and said, "Sir, are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know. Let's see." And I kind of rolled around a little bit and said, "Well, I can roll. Let's see. I can move this arm. I can move this arm. I can move this leg. I think just give me a hand up." So then another guy came over, and they kind of picked me up and put me on my feet. And the guy said, "That's amazing. I was a, Green Beret in Vietnam, and we learned a little martial arts, and that was funny. You know, Bruce Lee's uncle or something." I said, "No, but thank you." And the other guy said, "I'm a fireman, and if that tank had gone the way it was going, it would have hit not only your leg and snapped it off, but it would have smashed into that gas pump, and it could have easily broken off the valve and then exploded right here in the middle of the gas station. That would have taken out half the town." And they were like, just like, "Wow, amazing." So that's still in me, right? And everything that I've experienced is still in me, and everything you've experienced is still in you. And instead of going, "Ooh," I was murdered by a nun in first grade. Crushed my larynx, broke the orbit of this eye, broke the little horseshoe in this ear, broke my jaw. That's why my jaw, I have a bad TMJ. But after I got out of the hospital for a year, my godfather, Cardinal Cushing, put me in the sanctuary of the Maryknols, and all these people were scholars, and they were all had their own discipline. One guy was an audiographer, hearing. The other guy was a speech therapist. The other guy was an eye surgeon, and there were a whole bunch. Everyone had amazing. That's where I learned Greek and Latin, and and I learned how to speak, right? And because after that, I had an extraordinary stutter. I mean, makes John look like an orator. These guys rewired me, right, and made me better, right? But I still have that TMJ, right? I have no teeth. I mean, that's okay because, having no teeth, I can't just gobble up food. I have to eat it slowly. I have to let it, masticate in my mouth. Meaning the thing that breaks the food down is so much your teeth chopping it up. It's the enzymes in your mouth. So I just put a spoonful in my mouth. And when I ever I had a vegetarian omelet, I had them cook up the vegetables so they'd be soft, right? So I know how to live, and like I said, the two guys said, "Well, I don't have any money to give you earnest money. I'll just give you, no,
It was great.
sorry."
You have a nice day.
Uh, uh, what's up, Miss Lisa? Uh, ooh, rainbows. Rainbows.
See you, Miss Lisa.
Yes, sir. I do. Yeah, on the weekend. That's your kid from that paper kid. You told me to let you have the change. I didn't take time to put it in. And a little more money. I put a little extra mustard in my food.
Yes. Oh, baby. There's three of you there. How you doing? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei. Wow. Hi, your Sensei. You're great out here to tell you a story. What's going on? So, if you think things were weird, back with 9/11 and then the wars in the Mideast and the destruction of virtually every country that was there, and I am back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. That's when I traveled the world. It was cheap, it was easy, and so I was living in Sweden. I got myself a Swedish driver's license that looked just like a passport, and and in Sweden, esoteric alchemist. Ooh, cool, cool, cool. Yes. Who's whatever he said. Well, I have my herbal tea in one hand and coffee in the other. So I would in Sweden, because it's up there where it is in the wintertime, it is dark all the time, like nighttime dark. You get about 3 hours of grayness, and then it's dark. And in the summertime, the sun never sets, right? So it's party, party, party. I mean, it's really so it can enable you to go nuts, right? So The Swedish government, I love Mitch McConnell when they were trying to get single payer. Well, we did that, but A, couldn't spend $1 trillion on weapons, and B, if we did that, we'd be like Sweden. Well, I lived in Sweden for a year. It's not a bad place, right? So what they did have was they gave everyone a vacation, like to get out of town, right? And not only did they pay your salary for 2 weeks, they sent you on a vacation and paid for it, right? And there were a lot of people who were like agoraphobic. The government would sign them up for a trip and pay for it, and then they couldn't get out of the house or get on the bus or go to the airport. They couldn't do any of that. So there was a big bill, one of those things that shows when the flights are coming and going. They had one for all the flights that were leaving that day, that they had seats that if you went over to this special desk, you could sign up, right? So I would just take the bus from the little town of Fort Sugar, which was kind of right at the crossroads. Gutenberg was over here, Stockholm was over here, Fort Sugar was right here, and the main line, that road and railroad that connected Norway to Finland was right through that town. And Fort Sugar is a little teeny town, but there's a state capital or whatever that all of that transportation goes to. That wasn't that far, but there was a bus that I could just walk out. They had great transportation, municipal like they had trolley cars out in the countryside, So, when they didn't have that, they had buses that were relatively regular because not everyone had a car. Virtually no one had a car. Very few people had cars because gasoline was like $15 a liter in 1970, whatever that was. And so anyway, I would walk from my friend's house where I was staying, and I would wait. With my little rucksack, the bus would come by, I would get on it, take me to where the trolley was. I would take that into the main town where I get on a train, go to Stockholm, zip, and I just passed state, and it was for a year. And you could take any of those things, you don't have to pay, just show them your pass, and you get on, right? And so, and there was no transfers, no this, you just showed the pass, got on. And pretty much they wanted you to do that. They didn't want you pay basically they had this thing, if you didn't have the pass, they'd still let you get on, right? And I got a pass because the more I could be like a Swede, the easier it was for me to be there, right? That's why I got a driver's license, right? So I'd have a Swedish ID. So, the Swedish Garda would say, hey, you got an ID? I'd show them my Swedish driver's license, right? Okay, you can go. And so anyway, I would, take that trip, go to Stockholm, and the train would go into Stockholm and then be like a, monorail or, a direct line from that train station to the airport. So it would take me all of 2 or 3 hours to go 150 miles, right? And it was quite comfortable, quite nice, very clean. Like I just had my little, transportation pass. And I would get there and would look at the board, and you could call them up also to find what flights there were. So I went to virtually every capital. I went to Greece. I went to Istanbul. I went to Damascus. I went to the capital of Iraq, Baghdad. I went to the capital of Libya. I went to whatchamacallit, before the revolution. I went to Iran, and all these countries were, Americans and their terrible countries are, blah blah blah, right? They're in the Russian side, But Syria, a good example. It was a great country. Everyone, Libya was amazing. Libya was like Disneyland. No more. Gave everyone a really nice house, education as far as you wanted to go. Food was unbelievably cheap because before Libya fell, Libya's real thing that they sold to the world was vegetables. They sold more vegetables to Europe and got more money for it than they did for their oil. And they were making a lot of. And the other thing Momar did was he didn't let like Exxon come in and dig it up and then take it away. He had his own. He developed his own technology, right, to extract the oil. And because he had his own technology for drilling and pipelines, and also he would not just send the raw crude, he had his own refineries, and he had pipelines to Europe, right? So before Russia, Momar was doing that. So he made a good chunk of change from his petrochemicals and his oil and his gas, but he made more money with his vegetables because he took that drilling technology and went deeper and found unbelievably fresh water and pumped it up and turned that whole desert into a garden paradise. And we, the United States and NATO, the first thing they blew up with the water was the water system, right? And then they took out the power system, which was one of the best grids on the planet. It was pretty much all underground. They didn't have the big towers, and they took it all out, right? And turned it, brought it back to, and there was no reason. There was no revolution, right? And the Arab Spring was more or less motivated by the the unipolar transnational oligarchy, That's the story of that. And so I traveled all those places and experienced like Iraq. What's his name was there, Saddam. And as long as you didn't rock the boat, I mean, everyone had their own home, their own house, people going to school, making some food now. What are you making, buddy? Is it lunchtime, dinner time, or breakfast time where you are? So, so I traveled the world, and I also went to Japan, and I didn't go to China, but I didn't go to Vietnam or Cambodia because, people don't realize. Let's see, listening in the background, turkey brunch. Okay, that sounds yummy. I'm a big fan of brunch. And most people don't realize that Vietnam War kept going into almost the 80s, right? And because that war was more about four things: tourism, transportation, oil, and drugs. People don't know there's a lot of oil. I mean, that's why China wants that property. Like just off all those countries, Cambodia, Vietnam, the Philippines, everybody in the South China Sea,
We didn't know what had happened.
it's 11
Well,
o'clock.
Monday he had a doctor's appointment.
So-
I think my girls quit me. So, and Terry was already scheduled to be off on Valentine's Day.
So anyway, let's see how long we've been. 53 minutes. Okay. So anyway, I've seen the world, right? In good, bad, and
I
ugly.
think so.
And what I've noticed, that the thing that makes the human different from any of the other species on this planet is that we can work together. And when we do, we co-create, and love's co-creation, and we do amazing
You know what I
things.
mean?
So,
Okay.
He's been down that road more times than he can take a hoe and shovel it or clean it out. He just-
They'll
Yeah,
stay
yeah.
long enough to find those
So-
bags of something and they're gone.
Yeah.
They just worry about getting out of here.
so
I don't know. I don't know what'll happen.
I don't know how to make it.
When we first opened, I ran the floor till 10. But nobody wanted to come in at 7. I did. I had to cook, answer the phones, take orders, and do everything till 10 o'clock every morning. And we was busy. Nobody wanted, well, I can work, but I can't get there till 10. I said, why?
A guy stopped him and said, Steve, he said, yeah, well, I was looking.
yeah, you hear the conversation. Yeah. And that's the complaint across the world. But if you're motivated, conscious intent, I am. If you are
Could you imagine?
aware, conscious awareness, I am.
I told Banks, I said, next time you see, yeah, you can take from 7 to 7, 6 days a week.
He worked at the dollar store and he was fixing freedom party when on their valley. And he told me, he said, is there any way to hire me that we pick today? I didn't say one. Back 5-10 years ago, you got a job, you missed it in 90 days. I didn't put up this one.
It's changed.
And, Hamburg State.
And back before 1930, the workday was 12 hours long, 7 days a week.
Oh, the Burlington, if you went in 10 minutes late, you got your first ride.
Right.
You know my Uncle Junior Burr.
Huh?
He used to work at
At Burlington? I worked there for 6. What was his name?
Junior Burr. He worked there till they shut down.
People don't realize that this whole area back between the Civil War and 1950 was the Silicon Valley. It was high tech, all those rayon plants, all those chemical plants. I mean, just look at Kingsport,
I worked
right?
with him.
So,
He trained me to clean windows.
and people think people just Okies. No.
He trained me to clean windows.
I remember when they used to run work buses out of Butler to do these plants.
Right. And those people got to work on time.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's my community.
So I'll have that.
I think I'm going to go. Esoteric, always a pleasure to have you here.
For the 2
And
sides,
enjoy your turkey brunch.
bowl of beans,
And I have things to do, so I want to get back
small bowl.
for
No fish
oh,
cornbread.
yeah, no. Meatloaf, that's what they have. So anyway, I'll catch you later.
Just give me the big bowl.
Just give him the big bowl.
Once he speaks, I have to.
Nobody didn't ring your bell.
No, he speaks, I have to answer. No, I'm going to go on.